Hey there folks, welcome to the channel. I'm glad you could be here because we have got an exciting episode lined up for you today. Very regional sausage. Actually, my buddy Mike out in Jersey, longtime patron of the channel, suggested that we put this sausage on Celebrate Sausage. And since he suggested that, I have done a tremendous amount of research regarding today's episode. So what's the name of today's sausage? It kind of depends on where you live. If you're from North Jersey, you're more than likely going to call this Taylor ham. And if you're from South Jersey, more than likely this is going to be called pork roll. When doing my research for today's episode, I found that there were 5 things I needed to take into consideration before making the Taylor pork roll. Number 1 was the fat content. It seems like this sausage has a higher fat content than most. Number 2 is acidity. This is a fermented sausage. And when you ferment a sausage, you're in essence lowering the pH. The lower the pH goes, the more sour or tangy your sausage is. But how sour is the Taylor pork roll? There are a couple different ways to ferment your sausage. One is natural fermentation using live culture bacteria, and the second is kind of more of a cheat, and that's using encapsulated citric acid. If you plan on making this sausage at home, and I hope you do, I would highly suggest to go the natural fermentation route. It is incredibly easy and will 100% always deliver a better and more flavorful product. Matter of fact, that's the method we're going to be using in today's episode, and I'm going to show you how to do it, and like I said, it is incredibly easy. If you want to use the encapsulated citric acid hack, if you want to kind of cheat this sausage, maybe you already have encapsulated citric acid and you don't want to buy a starter culture, check the recipe link in the description box below, and I'll put some notes on how much encapsulated citric acid you should add to your recipe and the process that you should follow. The third thing I had to consider was smokiness, and I found this particular element of this sausage to be very interesting because I asked a lot of folks from Jersey. Some said it was smoked, others said it was not. Well, I wanted to get to the bottom of it, so I actually called Taylor Provisions, the company that manufactures the Taylor pork roll, and just straight up asked them. He told me, yes, the Taylor pork roll is a smoked sausage. It's smoked in a smokehouse using hickory wood, and by the time it's finished, it is fully cooked and ready to go. So hopefully that clears up any confusion. We are going to be smoking our Taylor pork roll today, just like they do, natural wood, hickory. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. I will add this one little thing. The gentleman that I talked to over at Taylor Provisions did not like it every time I called the Taylor pork roll a sausage. He said it is not a sausage, it's a pork roll. And I guess I kept calling it a sausage. I'm calling it a sausage now, so don't mind me, force of habit. The fourth thing was texture, and the fifth thing was flavor. What does it taste like? The label on the pork roll only has a few ingredients: salt, sugar, it says spices, lactic acid, starter culture, and then it has curing salt. So the spices is where it's at, and that's probably a very closely guarded secret, so we're gonna have to figure that part out. All right, that's what we're up against. Sounds easy enough. Let's make the Taylor pork roll. And before we start, I just want to ask one little quick favor from those of you who are from that area. Every time I incorrectly identify the Taylor pork roll, can you let me know what it's actually supposed to be called in the comment section below? I'd love to get the bottom of it. And if some of you know a little bit of that history, drop that in the comment section as well. Let's get started. Let's look at the meat. We've already got it cut up and prepared for the grinder. For this pork roll, we're going to be using some pork shoulder, some back fat, and some lean pork. If you want to add a little pork belly, that's all right. What we're looking for is a fat content of about 38 to 40%. Let's look at the spices while we get this chilled. The first ingredient is salt, and the amount that we're going to add is significantly less than what is typically found in store-bought pork roll. Be sure to check the description box for the full recipe. We're going to be adding Instacure number 1, a little white pepper, some granulated garlic, and just a hint, not a lot, just a hint of mace. We need to add dextrose as this is going to feed our starter culture, and then as a binder, I'm going to be adding potato starch. There we go. Let's set this to the side while we look at our next, quite possibly most important ingredient, and that is our starter culture. The Taylor ham is a fermented sausage. It's going to have a little bit of a pH drop, which is going to give us that beautiful, slightly tangy flavor that it's known for. You could use whatever starter culture that you want that's designed to lower the pH. There's lots to choose from, but in this case, I'm using one that's relatively new to me. It's called HPS Dry. So I'm going to add just a little of this HPS Dry starter culture into some water, and we're going to let that rehydrate for about half an hour. No matter what culture you use, the process is going to be the same. Let it just rehydrate at room temperature for 30 minutes, and then you want to store this back in the coldest part of your freezer. I'm using this vacuum seal reusable bag from the sausage maker to make that happen. Okay, this looks great. We're going to give it a little swirl. Remember, we're going to leave it on our countertop at room temperature.
for 30 minutes. And if you're making a lot of different sausages like I am, you might want to label the lid so you don't get it confused. For the casing, we're going to be using 100 millimeter collagen middles. This is a really nice size. I also like the 150 millimeter synthetic casings if you want kind of an extra large pork roll. But for this video, we're doing 100 millimeter. They're soaking in some lukewarm water. 10-15 minutes is all it needs. And our meat has now been properly chilled. So everything looks good at this point. Let's just take the temperature. Usually I'm looking for anything under 34 Fahrenheit. And it looks like we are there for the meat. We're also there for the fat. Perfect. All right. How you grind this is totally up to you. I do think that the pork roll is a fine grind sausage. So what we're going to do is a triple grind starting with a 10 millimeter plate. This is going to generate the least amount of heat and give us an absolutely clean and beautiful grind without smearing the fat. Between each one of the grinds, though, I do want to take the temperature. If for whatever reason the temperature rose above 34 degrees, like in this case, it's at 36, I am going to re-chill it so that we can get it under 34 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's going to guarantee that we have an absolutely beautiful, clean grind at each stage. This second grind, I'm going to do on a 6 millimeter plate. And notice how I feed it into the grinder. I'm not using the plunger. I'm just allowing it to feed in very naturally. No problems here. Using the plunger is okay, but you can kind of create more problems for yourself if you exclusively use it. This is what the meat looks like coming out of the grinder on grind number 2. And you could stop here if you want, or you could do a third grind on an even smaller plate. I'm going to do a third grind on the 6 millimeter plate again. And I do want to say that between grinds, if you're going to use the same plate, remove the plate and make sure that there's no connective tissue, blocking any of those holes, because you do want a very nice, clean grind. If there's connective tissue blocking those holes, it's going to smear the fat and create a problem for you down the road. So we're finishing up grind number 3. This is the 6 millimeter plate. And like I said, if you want to do 4.5 millimeter, if you want to do 3 millimeter, it's fine. Just make sure your meat is properly chilled and your plate is free of any kind of obstruction. Let's mix everything together. Our meat has been ground perfectly. I'm very pleased with the way that it looks at this point. And the first ingredient that we're going to add is our starter culture. So we're just going to turn the unit on and let the starter culture incorporate for just a few seconds before we add the rest of the spices. The amount of water that we're adding is about 10%. It is listed in the recipe below. And that's going to help soften up this pork quite a bit. But the binder that we've added, the potato starch, is going to give us that texture that I think that we're looking for. So we'll see here in a second once we're done with the process. At this point, we can now add our spices. And the salt that's in the spices is going to help release a lot of those proteins, which is going to turn what looks like a fairly crumbly mixture into a super sticky batter, just like that. And what I'm looking for is for the meat mixture to stick to the underside of my hand when I hold it upside down. That lets me know we've got really good solid protein extraction, and this looks great. Now, depending on how fine you chose to grind your sausage, it could look a little more pasty. I still see some particle definition of fat inside my mixture. Yours could look completely smooth, especially if you ended up on a 3 millimeter grind. The choice is yours, though. It's a personal preference. Let's get this into a casing. Now, the first thing I did was stuck this entire tray of meat into my VacMaster chamber vacuum sealer to get rid of any of the air pockets. It's more for aesthetics as it doesn't affect the flavor. For the sausage stuffer, we're going to be using the 1 1/4 inch horn. This is the Sausage Maker's 5-pound sausage stuffer, which is going to be perfect for this sausage. And let me know in the comment section below, what kind of sausage making equipment are you working with? Could you use a bit of an upgrade? I'd love to hear about it. All right, now that we've got our meat stuffed into our hopper, and we're just packing it down every time we add some more meat, let's get this sausage stuffed. Very nice. The trick here is to pack everything into that casing super tight, and whatever's remaining in that stuffing horn, we're going to push out with the sausage stuffing horn cleaner. I do happen to have a little bit of meat that was remaining in the hopper, and that little bit we're going to wrap in some cling film because we're going to use this little sample piece to test the pH of our meat. Because remember, this is a fermented sausage. Let's tie off our casing, and you want this relatively tight. That's going to keep everything nice and bound. Fold whatever casing is remaining over that initial tie, and then give that a tie again. What you're looking for is a bit of a bubble. So see how we created this little bit of a bubble? Once you do that, you can secure your knot by tying it off a few more times, and this just basically prevents the bottom from opening up while it's hanging. In this particular case, it's not that big a deal because it's not very heavy, but if you're doing an entire log that's going to weigh 5 or 6 pounds, it is a little more critical. Here is our hanging point. And now the fermentation process begins, and this is where things can get a little tricky. So what you don't want is you don't want your meat to finish fermenting at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so you want to make sure that you time this perfectly. The starter culture that we added, and typically fast fermenting acidifying cultures, will ferment faster at higher temperatures. At lower temperatures, obviously, they ferment a little bit slower. And so it is getting kind of late for me. And I don't want this to ferment ultra fast. So what I'm going to do is let it sit on my counter right here. The temperature of my room is around 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is going to ferment nice and slow through the night. Now tomorrow, we're going to take this and we're going to stick it into our smoker and increase the temperature. That way I'll be awake and we can monitor the pH and make sure that we don't overshoot our target. Currently, the pH of the meat is around 5.8. And what we're going to be targeting is somewhere between 4.7 and 4.8. The lower you go, the more acidic your sausage gets, so the flavor tends to be more sour or more tangy. It's not a bad thing, but some people prefer it, some people don't. There are two conditions required for proper fermentation. One is humidity and one is temperature. The cling film that I'm wrapping around the pork roll is going to lock in the humidity, which is going to satisfy the humidity requirement. And the room that I'm fermenting in is on the low end of the spectrum for fermentation, which is around 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so here's a recap of what I do when it comes to fermenting the pork roll, and you don't have to do this, but this is a great way to do it. Start by wrapping your pork roll in cling film, and then place it in an area that's between 75 and 85 Fahrenheit, or 23.8 and 29.4 Celsius. Let it hang out there overnight. It's going to slowly ferment. The next day, unwrap the pork roll and place that into your smoker. You're going to want to cold smoke that for 3 to 5 hours. If you have the capability, increase the temperature of your smoker to 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 Celsius, and your sausage will ferment a little bit faster. So let me show you what all that looks like. 14 hours have passed, it's now the next morning, and I'm going to finish up the fermentation process. Before we do that though, I do want to test the pH just so that you could see the slow pH drop that's happened over the last 14 hours. Here's our sample piece. And one thing I would say is that if you are going to be getting into fermented meats, having a proper, reliable pH meter is definitely the way to go. We've been using this Apera Instruments pH meter for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years, and it's been amazing. So look at our pH right now. It's at 5.43. Remember, the start of our pH was at 5.8. So we've had a very slow pH drop through the course of the night, and that's mainly because the culture prefers warmer temperatures. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to actually put it into a warmer temperature. So let's rewrap the sample piece because it's not done fermenting. And we're going to take both the sample piece and our pork roll and stick it into our smoker. We do want to unwrap the pork roll so that it could take on that beautiful smoke. And we're going to be placing this into our digital Smokin-IT smoker. This particular smoker can handle extremely low temperatures. And so not only is it a great smoker, but it also acts as a great fermentation box when you're doing fermented sausages much like this. So I do have a tray of water inside with a paper towel sort of draped over the sides. That's going to keep the humidity high inside the smoker, which, remember, is one of the criteria for proper fermentation. And now we're going to begin the process of cold smoking. And remember, we are not going to be applying too much heat during this process. We want to keep the temperature below 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about the high end of the range of fermentation for the starter culture. So the type of wood that we're going to be adding is hickory. I am going to be using the Bella's cold smoke generator. That's what that is right there. And we're just going to be applying a steady stream of beautiful smoke while this sausage ferments. How smoky you want your sausage is completely up to you. So if you just want a little light kiss of smoke, or if you want to go heavy smoke, then the choice is yours. Remember that larger diameter sausages take a little bit longer to take on smoke. So I would smoke for a minimum 2 to 3 hours. I'm going to open up the app here for the Smokin-IT smoker, select the number 4 because that's what we're using. And I want you to check out step number 1. This is what we have our smoker programmed for. I've got it set to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's going to run for 6 hours. Now, at this temperature, our sausage is going to ferment sooner than that, but I will be monitoring the pH through that time frame, and when we hit our target, we'll go ahead and pull the sausage and begin cooking it. So here's a recap. Now we're fermenting the sausage the following day. The temperature should be between 85 and 104 Fahrenheit. If you don't have a way to increase the temperature, that's fine. It's just going to take a little bit longer to get to the right pH. The humidity should be high, at least 90%, which is why we have that tray of water in the smoker. And we're going to be targeting a pH between 4.7 and 4.8. The lower the pH goes, the more acidic your sausage is going to be. So that just means it's going to have a more sour or tangy flavor. It's totally okay, and some people prefer that, but I think for what we're doing here, 4.7 to 4.8 is going to nail it. As far as smoke goes, we're going to be cold smoking this with hickory wood and keep the temperature range between 85 and 104 Fahrenheit, or 29.4 and 40 Celsius, so that it can ferment properly.
While our meat is smoking, let's have a little fun. Let's do another product giveaway. Today's product giveaway comes from our other major sponsor here at Celebrate Sausage, Smokin'-IT Smokers. Let me tell you something about Smokin'-IT Smokers. I bought my first smoker from them about 10 years ago. It was a model number 4, and truth is, it's been a great smoker. It's the one that we've used exclusively for our business and on the channel. And honestly, there was never really a reason to get another smoker until about a year ago. Smokin'-IT came out with a Pro line that introduced a convection system. And I do like convection ovens, and I wanted to see what a convection smoker would be like. The build on these smokers, ultra heavy duty, solid stainless steel construction.
And I'm going to put a link to Smokin'-IT's website in the description box below. There you can check out their entire line of smokers. And for Celebrate Sausage, Smokin'-IT Smokers has agreed to give away a Bella's Cold Smoke Generator. You see it constantly in my videos with the purchase of any digital smoker.
You should definitely check them out. They've got a lot of different smokers, a lot of different price points. You know, they have digital, they have Wi-Fi, and so they got a little bit of something for everyone who's serious about smoking meats. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the smoker that one lucky winner will get. Smokin'-IT Smokers is giving away a model 3.5 Professional Series Convection Smoker. All right, so let me just kind of break down that smoker for you so that you'll know what it's all about. First of all, the convection system is extraordinary. Since we've started implementing convection cooking in our cooks, briskets, ribs, pulled pork, obviously sausages. We probably cook sausage in our smoker more than anything else. The results have been amazing. We're finding that the meat is not only cooking more evenly, better, but also a little bit faster. In the case of sausage, having that hot convection air run over that sausage helps crisp up that casing, all but ensuring that you're going to get an absolutely amazing snappy bite. Matter of fact, you're seeing the results here in some of the episodes. This model 3.5 that's up for grabs is also digital. Now, I know a lot of companies have digital smokers, but the Smokin'-IT brand has a programmable digital smoker. And all that basically means is that you can either go to the smoker or go to the app on your phone and program the smoker to do what you want it to do. So if you want to have a true low and slow, let's say 100 degrees for an hour, 125 degrees for 2 hours, 150 for 1 hour, 175 until you get to an internal temperature of, let's say, 150. All you got to do is program it, and it's super easy to do. You'll see me do it in some of these episodes, and the smoker takes care of the rest. And let me tell you, it makes smoking with the Smokin'-IT Smoker absolutely ridiculous. Let's give one of these smokers away. How do you enter? Incredibly easy. We're going to keep it simple today. First thing you got to do is be a subscriber to the channel. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. Next, give this video a thumbs up and share it on whatever social media platform you belong to. So far, so good? All right. Finally, most importantly, leave this video a comment. Let me know in the comment section below why you would like to win a Model 3.5 Professional Series Convection Smoker from Smokin'-IT Smoker, and one lucky comment will be picked at random on October 31st. So you got a couple weeks to enter. You can find all the information about this giveaway in the description box below. I hope you win. Let's go see how that Taylor ham is doing.
We've been fermenting beautifully at 104 degrees Fahrenheit, incrementally adding smoke, and we're now going to test our sample piece. As you can see right here, everything's looking beautiful, light smoke. Our sausage is in a very humid environment. Let's test the pH of the sample and see where we're at. Cool thing about this is that if we haven't hit our target yet, we can just let it continue fermenting. I would say start checking the pH between that 16 to 18 hour mark so you don't overshoot your target. I'm loving the texture. It's completely changed, well bound together, smells incredible. We're using a pH meter from a pair of instruments to check the pH. And remember, 4.8 to 4.7 is what we're targeting. I'd love to see a 4.75. That's the ideal pH for me. And it looks like, all right, 4.75. Couldn't have asked for a better ending spot, because you got to remember, when we place this in the sous vide water bath, it's going to continue fermenting for another 30 minutes or so. So we'll probably end up at around 4.71, 4.72, something like that. You can cook this in your smoker, high humidity, but I do believe we're going to get better results in a water bath. But in the recipe link, I'll put a few different options on how to cook this pork roll. We are going to vacuum seal this, and I am using the Sausage Maker's heavy-duty vacuum sealer, so we're going to select the tight seal. We're also going to make sure the dry food option is selected. That's going to give us a better seal. And then we're going to click the vacuum button. There we go. Very quickly, we are back in business. All right, we're going to cook this sous vide at 145 Fahrenheit or 62.7 degrees Celsius for roughly about 4 hours. We want the very center of our sausage to be at that 145 mark. And from my experience, a sausage of this diameter generally takes about 4 hours. So we're going to get to an internal temperature of 145 degrees. It's going to be pasteurized and cooked perfectly. All right, so we're going to cook this sous vide 145 Fahrenheit or 62.7 Celsius for 4 hours or 1 hour for every inch in diameter. We are done with the cooking process and our pork roll is ready to come out of that water bath. In my opinion, cooking sous vide is the most precise way and kind of foolproof way to cook a sausage like this. You dial in the temperature, you're going to retain a lot more of the moisture than if you were to, cook it traditionally or in a smoker. And it's kind of hard to mess up, to be honest. Once we pull it out of the water bath, we are going to put it in an ice bath, and this is going to stop the cooking process, cool it way down. We're then going to take it and place it into our refrigerator overnight, at which point we'll give it a cut. Our pork roll is ready. And first impressions, I got to tell you, I'm loving the density. I'm loving the way this sausage feels in my hands. Version 2.0 was way too fatty, and I think we ruined the bind on it, so it was relatively soft. But this has a nice firm feel to it. Oh, that's nice. Very nice. I'm loving the texture. This is kind of more along the lines of what I think it's supposed to be about. Very pleased so far. At this point, I want to toss it on my slicer and give it a slice. Beautiful looking Taylor ham. Very pleased with what we've got. Great looking bind, no problem. And the lean to fat distribution in this pork roll is incredible. I'm absolutely loving it. And so what I think we need to do now is enjoy this in the most iconic way possible. We're going to make the official state sandwich of New Jersey, the Taylor ham, egg, and cheese. Start by making a couple slits on our pork roll so that it doesn't curl up. And we're going to begin frying it up. Now, we made these Kaiser buns yesterday, and what I'm going to do is just lightly toast them with a little bit of butter, or a lot of butter. Absolutely amazing. Taylor ham in, we're going to go with 4 not so thin cut slices and fry them up a minute. What I'm looking for is a little Maillard reaction, nothing crazy, just a little bit of color. If your recipe has too much sugar in it, then they will tend to get burnt on the edges, which I didn't like so much. So we've got a little bit of color on our Taylor ham. Let's pop those on top of each other, and then we're going to come back with the classic American cheese. There we go, 1 on each pile. As it's now starting to melt, we're going to put this and set it to the side while we get our egg prepared. All right, here we go. I do particularly have a thing about yolks being in the center, so we're going to scooch that over to the very middle. And if you cook your egg in the same skillet as the Taylor ham, that fat is going to give your egg a ton of flavor. Give it a quick flip. Beautiful browning on the underside. Just a minute on the bottom side so that we don't overcook the yolk. And then we're going to put some, guess what? American cheese right on top. Loving this so far. Let's get all of the components put together. And if you're from Jersey, let me know how I'm doing so far. We're going to hit it with a little ketchup, top and bottom. Next, our first 2 slices of Taylor ham. We got our egg and cheese, and then our next 2 slices of pork roll. Let's go ahead and spread some of that ketchup around on the top, and it looks like there it is. Here is our version of the Taylor ham, egg, and cheese. You know we got to give this a little slice. Here we go. Oh my gosh, this is going to be money. All right, look at this. This is my first time making this sandwich. Wow. That is what I'm talking about.
All right, guys, our Taylor ham is ready, also known as pork roll. And as you saw a minute ago, we made ourselves a beautiful Taylor ham, egg, and cheese sandwich. Looks incredible. Very cheesy, nice runny yolk. We're not going to bite into it just yet. We're going to save that here for in a minute. I realize that this particular sausage is very important to a select group of people. Some might even argue it's a religion of sorts. So I really wanted to nail the recipe. And having never had the sausage personally, I had to reach out to everyone that I knew who was from the Jersey area and ask them to explain the pork roll as best they could. Was it tangy? Was it sweet? Was it salty? Was it spicy? And so I had to take all that information and just basically formulate it into an imaginary sausage as I wrote the recipe over here to try and create something that was pretty close to the Taylor ham. And if not, it would certainly be our addition to the pork roll family. We're going to taste just the pork roll, right? So this has already been cooked. We smoked it a little bit, and the only thing left to do is pan sear. But I just want to kind of get the natural flavors. I want to get the acidity, the saltiness, the sweetness. Let's cut into it and see what that is like. Okay, so first and foremost, beautiful texture on the sausage. It is bound well together. Look at that. Absolutely perfect. And you know, I learned something about myself after making this so many times. I tend to like the pork roll cut a little bit thicker. Originally, I was slicing it pretty thin, and I felt like it crisped up too much, and I didn't like the way that happened. So I feel like the meatier the bite for me, the better. Matter of fact, I could probably go a little bit thicker than this, personally speaking. But this is what I ended up with, and I'm okay with that. Beautiful smell, slightly acidic. Definitely have that fermentation quality to it. I wouldn't say it's overly smoked. We very lightly smoked it. I did one batch, and then I gave it to a friend of mine who's from Jersey, and he was like, way too sweet, way too smoky. That was the first two things that he said. So we had to tone back and adjust the recipe. Right here, this is just very nice. It's not overwhelming. It's kind of a subtle smoke element in the background. This is all personal preference. You know, certain people like it one way, other people like it a different way. So when you get to make this at home, if you do, then you can totally customize it to where it is the perfect pork roll for you. All right, let's give it a quick little bite. I'm loving the bind on this. This is so good. Okay, nice and fatty piece. Taking a bite. Ooh. That's nice. That is unctuous. It's acidic, but it's not tart. You can definitely tell that it's been fermented, but it is not tangy. We originally, the original batch we made, batch version 1.0, we fermented this to a 4.35, something like that. And it was ultra tangy, like sour almost. And so in my mind, I thought there's no way that the actual pork roll is 4.3. Great texture. Okay. Wow, I'm loving how fatty that is too. The actual pork roll may be even fattier. They may have something like 40%, maybe even 45% fat in the recipe. I think we stopped it at around 37, 38%, something like that. But I will put a recipe link in the description box below. Okay, so in my opinion, this is very well balanced, very well flavored. I'm loving the acidity. I'm loving the subtle hints of the garlic and the mace. They do accent the pork beautifully. The salt level is great. This is definitely not salty. The original pork roll, if you look at the salt content, fairly high. Same with the sugar. You have a lot of salt and a lot of sugar. Not in this one. We have only the amount of sugar that we need to ferment and only the amount of salt that we need to really kind of get this to bind together and to flavor the meat. And so for me, this is absolutely perfect. Okay, that is nice. We are now going to get into this Taylor ham, egg, and cheese sandwich. Here we go, going in. Wow, that is seriously ridiculous. Homemade Kaiser bun. We made the Kaiser buns yesterday. Nice and cheesy, 3 layers of cheese. That Taylor ham is so good. Fried up a little bit, elevates the flavor. And then, of course, you've got that runny yolk that just adds so much richness. I love the ketchup touch. Little on top, little on the bottom. And I'm going to tell you, this is a ridiculous sandwich. This is a ridiculous sausage. It is incredibly flavorful. I do hope you get a chance to make it. Like I said before, I'm going to put a recipe link in the description box below. This is an incredible sausage. It's kind of a unique sausage eating experience. Truth be told, it's unlike any of the other sausages we've ever made, and we've made a lot of sausages. It kind of stands in its own category. So I'm very happy to add the pork roll to our list of sausage recipes. Thanks a lot for watching this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, got something out of it in any way, or if you're from Jersey and you enjoyed my effort at making your iconic sausage, give this video a thumbs up. If you're new to this channel and you enjoy this type of content, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, because we are uploading a brand new video every day through the month of October, and we are not yet done. Matter of fact, if this is the first video that you've seen from our channel, I'll put a playlist right about here at the very end of this video that'll take you back to episode 1. You can get caught up. We've got a lot of prizes, a lot of giveaways. In tomorrow's episode, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. We're going to be making an experimental sausage where we take whiskey, crispy bacon, throw them together into a sausage. Sounds pretty good to me. We'll see if it works. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. That is a seriously good sandwich. Wow.